Welcome to Hands on Health, the podcast all about living your healthiest life on the coast. I'm your host, Felicia Struve. My guest today is Tom Haigler. Tom is a board-certified physician assistant who recently joined the CMH Primary Care Clinic in Astoria. Tom has a fascinating story. He began his career in the U.S. Army. Thank you for joining me for episode 30 of Hands on Health. Welcome, Tom.
Well, thank you for having me today, Felicia.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. You are brand new to the area. You started at the clinic, last month? Is that right?
I sure
Or a few
did,
months
yeah.
ago now.
It's about 4
Yeah.
weeks now, the 12th, I think, so.
So I wanted to bring you on the podcast because when you and I first talked, you have a fascinating background, and it's a little unusual with physician assistants. I always say it with an S, so I apologize for that. But you have an unusual background among physician assistants. So I thought your background would be, and not only your background, also your hobbies and your interests also caught my ear. So I wanted to share that and introduce you to our community with a podcast. So
Okay.
would you mind sharing how you got started in medicine?
Well, I had a cousin who was in Vietnam, and all he talked about was how much he respected the medics that was with him there. So my brother called me up one day, and he said, "Tom, I'm joining the Army, and if I take a buddy with me, then we can both go in as E2s instead of E1s." So I said, okay, why not? So I talked to a recruiter, took my test and everything, and ended up being a medic. I scored high enough on my ASVAB or my testing that my recruiter said, you can pretty much do whatever you want to in the Army. And I said, so being a medic shouldn't be a problem, right? So anyway, that's how I ended up being a medic. He asked me if I wanted to be airborne at that time, and I told him I was just not that crazy. So I went to basic training, became a medic, did my first duty station in Alabama. And at Alabama, I was stationed with a guy named Mario Vigil, he was airborne. And the way he carried himself and everything that he did just made me want to be airborne. So I ended up going to airborne school. I got assigned to an airborne unit in Alaska, Fort Richardson, Alaska. And while I was there, I met a PA there, Jim Marlowe, who kind of took me under his wing. And I advanced through the ranks pretty fast in the enlisted field. And I told him, I said, I really think I might go to officer school, become a lieutenant. And he said, why don't you just become a PA? Because if you look around here, he said, and I'm paraphrasing this, nobody messes with the chief. So that's how I got my interest in PA school. I put my application in, and I got picked up, and been doing this PA game for about 30 years now, a little over 30 years. So
that was really what caught my attention with you, was that you have your first item on your resume is parachutist. So that's the airborne, I'm assuming. That's
right.
The same thing? Okay. So you're jumping out of planes, and obviously you are a smart guy. They said you can do anything in the Army, and you said, I want to jump out of a plane. And then so then you go back to be a PA. But you ended up being deployed a couple times while
I did.
in the Army as well. So will you tell us about that?
As a brand new PA, I ended up in the first Iraq War, Desert Storm, and I was with the 3rd Squadron, 2nd ACR, which was actually, we were the first unit that made it into Iraq. So there was another PA in my unit with me. We were both. I actually took a doctor spot. They couldn't get a doctor to get up front, so they said, "Well, we'll send 2 PAs because we're expendable."
You're more expendable. Oh, that's terrible.
So bottom line is, we were kind of racing. He had his aid station on to the left of me, and my aid station actually made it into Iraq before his did. So there's supposed to be a little plaque on the wall at San Antonio, Texas, that actually mentions me being the first PA into Iraq during that war. So that was kind of fun too. But we did that little war. I spent 131 days over there. We actually count those things. Went back to my unit, and I ended up in Macedonia, Bosnia. I went to Kosovo, and I actually had the honor of meeting Bob Dole while I was in Kosovo. He came to our unit. I was actually the task force surgeon there, which is not meaning that I was operating on people. It's just a name we give, the guy that's taking care of all the medical stuff there. So I worked for a 1-star general, and that was probably the best job I had. It was a job I probably shouldn't have. We I was the division PA at the time. I was a captain, and me and my medical planner, Captain Chris Chandler, actually had to write up the plans for the medical deployment into Kosovo. And at that time, the commanding general, David Grange, he was a 2-star general, major general. Him and all the primaries, all the colonels, everybody that was in charge were in Normandy doing a D-Day walkthrough. So all the secondaries, the guys like us, the little lowly captains, were the ones that actually ended up doing the planning for this. Grange told the guys, said, "We're not going back." Said, your deputies can handle this. And we did. And then they switched. One unit was supposed to go, one brigade was supposed to go, but then they switched it to another brigade. That brigade did not have a doctor, so I ended up filling that slot. And that's how I got that job, and how I got to meet Bob Dole. So it was
You're brushed with fame.
Well, it was fun. It was very challenging, but a very rewarding deployment for me. So
Yeah. Well, for me, that time's kind of fuzzy. I was in high school at the time. And so, I didn't understand it in the same way that I understand some of the political conflicts that have happened later in my life. So,
right.
So that you were actually there and on the ground is completely different perspective. And I love that there's a bit of, obviously there's tragedy in your line of work when you've been deployed, but there's also a little fun. It sounds like, there's a little competition between you and the other medic in Operation Desert Storm, and that, you had good opportunities to meet people and to show off your unit. And so it's not all bad.
No, it's not. And and like there's hard times when you're serving, but I enjoyed it. I did 20 years in 3 days. It actually made me wait till the end of the month before they let me out. but and I still miss it every day. You miss that camaraderie. You miss just knowing the guy beside you is a guy that's going to take care of you, and he's depending on you. You're dependent on him. As a matter of fact, when I went, we had a long ramp up before we actually crossed the berm into Iraq. And I taught my medics everything. I said, "Okay, guys, here's the deal. It's me and it's you. So if I get hit, I'm going to make sure you can take care of me too." So I taught them everything I could, because, we all want to go home. So.
Right. Yeah. Hoarding information is a bad way to go in that situation, for sure. So you, when did you get out of the Army?
I retired May the 31st, 2002. So that was a long time ago.
And what was that transition like?
The first year after I got out of the Army, I retired in Germany, and I stayed in Germany for another year working, for the Army, and then ended up in Wyoming after that. It was just time to go back to the States. So I found a job in Wyoming where I could, it was a startup clinic, and it was just me. I had no nurses, MAs. My physician supervisor was 5 miles down the road. I would pick up the phone and call her on occasion, but pretty much it was my own little gig. So that makes you work a little bit harder too. So.
I bet. But you're used to doing a lot with a little, so it seems like it would be a good fit for you.
It was.
So what brought you then to the coast? Wyoming's a lot different than Oregon coast.
I didn't have, we had no family in Wyoming. My hunting buddy moved to Utah. Didn't have a lot in Rock Springs that was actually holding me there. I enjoyed my job there, but that was, pretty much it. And so my family is on the East Coast. Emily, my wife's family, was out here, and we talked about it. And so I'm pretty sure she had a two-headed coin. She flipped the coin, she called it, and we ended up on the West Coast.
Okay, so tell me, you've got a great story about how you met your wife too.
Yeah,
Do you want to share?
Oh, sure. So I was a member of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and my buddy and I bid on a hunting trip to South Africa. So we went on safari in South Africa, and I was single at the time, and I was on Match.com, and we were at JFK, getting ready to catch our flight to Dubai, which then went to Johannesburg. But I said, okay, I got to check my account real quick. And I checked my account, and there was Emily. She was the first one that popped up on the page that day. And I said, wow, I'm going to send her a message. So I messaged her, and she messaged me back. So the hour or so that we were at JFK, we were emailing each other back, and pretty much emailed each other the whole time I was in Africa. And when I flew back into Salt Lake, she was there waiting on me, and we've pretty much been together ever since.
Well, that sounds like fate.
It is. It has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it like in movies? They call it a meet cute, when you have just something that just clicks and you've got the right person, the right time, the right lucky day. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's how it worked.
Sounds like it. And that's also what's brought you here. If, her and her two-headed coin.
Right. I may have made the two-headed coin part up.
I have a feeling that if it had landed on tails, she probably would have convinced you to come anyways.
Oh, well, we love it here. And actually, I'm from North Carolina, and I fly home as often as I can. But every time I fly into Charlotte, I'll get in the rental car, and 10 minutes out of the airport on the interstate, I say, okay, this is why I don't live here. I can't do the traffic. It's too congested, and it's hot, it's humid, and it's kind of nice. And today, even this little windy mist that we've got going on here on the bay it's still nice. So
yeah, there's really only 2 or 3 weeks in the whole year that makes me go, oh, it's too hot, it's too humid. So, but yeah, so you're doing family practice. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you, it's a lot different, obviously, than being a medic and a combat PA. What do you like about family practice?
I like knowing my patients, when someone comes in, recognizing the name, recognizing the problems, anticipating what we're going to need to do, and you develop a relationship, and I care about my patients, and I want them well. I want them happy. And a lot of times I will tell them, to make sure you get better, because I just don't want you to make me look bad. And that's
sometimes social pressure works.
Yeah, that's the response. They always laugh. So it's good. So I love what I do. I love taking care of patients. I could be retired right now and not do a thing, but I don't know why I would do that as much as I love what I'm doing. So
yeah, well, we're lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you this is your day off. So I really appreciate you making the time and coming on the podcast to chat with me.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
Hey there, it's Felicia. Thanks for listening. I'd love to include your questions or comments in an upcoming episode. To leave me a message, please call 503-338-4654. If you've got a health question, I'll do my best to get you an expert answer. Again, that number is 503-338-4654. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Felicia Struve, and this has been an episode of Hands on Health, brought to you by Columbia Memorial Hospital.